Well, hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good day, good afternoon, depending on what time you're watching. I'm shining like a brand new penny. But anyway, this is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and I'm back with part four of SEX and the CEO, a candid discussion on sex in the marketplace and the workplace. And I know I'm a couple of days short, but it's better late than never. I had intended to come back another night, but I did finally make it. So I was determined to finish the series. Life happens and you just roll with it, you keep it flowing. So, anyway, in the previous three sessions, we've been talking about the very real issue of sex in the marketplace and in the workplace. And even though it is sometimes the elephant in the room, it is something that is of importance for us to have a candid dialogue about so that we can work through the very real issues that we face when men and women work together in the workplace and in the marketplace. So just to kind of recap on the first three nights, this is part four of the part five series. On the first night, we talked about, what do you do when you are faced with sexual harassment? And really thinking about the very, very practical aspect of that and how it should be handled. And day two, we talked about dress, appearance, and its influence, impact, and instigation of sexual attraction in the workplace. And then in part three, we talked about doing business with the opposite sex and the very real fact that if you're going to work, whether it's in a job or whether it is as an entrepreneur in the marketplace, you are going to encounter people of opposite sex, and in some cases same sex. You do you, and you may even be attracted to them, and some of the folks you work with may be downright sexy. So what do? Because you got to do business, and basically you got to learn how to handle your business, right? So tonight we're going to talk about libations, late nights, and liabilities, and the very real issues that come up with, what do you do when you are in a business or social setting or a social/business setting and alcohol is served? What do you do when you have to work late nights and it's people of the opposite sex that you have to work with? Well, the very short answer to it is you handle your business, right? And that has been the theme of this, is that, we've got to separate the sex from the business and be able to handle our business at the end of the day. Because, a lot of people ask the questions, and of course it's apropos that I'm talking about libations as I drink my libations. I've been waiting for this libation all day. It's been a long day, long weekend. It's just Tuesday. But anyway, the question often arises is, when you are at work engagements or in the work setting. Now, obviously, you should not be drinking on the job. So what I'm talking about are those social settings where business is conducted, or business functions where alcohol is served, or business trips and it's dinner, and or otherwise it is some type of interaction and alcohol is served. And the question always comes up, should you drink? And the answer is, well, yes and no. Because first of all, whether you drink or not is a personal decision. Some people don't drink alcohol at all. More power to you. I'm not one of those. But here's the thing. Yes, it is okay. And this is my opinion, and based on my experiences as a woman CEO, and of course as I've shared throughout this series, I'm talking about it from the perspective of my experience as a woman CEO. The issues that I discuss affect both men and women, and in fact I invite men and women to participate in the dialogue. But of course I'm bringing you my perspective, and I will say, it is a very real issue for women in particular to consider whether they ever drink in the presence of their business colleagues. And I have always taken the position that because I drink alcohol regularly, I drink alcohol. I'm not a, what do you call it, teetotaler or something or another. Anyway, I drink alcohol. I'm not going to not do that because I'm in a business setting. What I am going to do, however, is to make sure that I am never intoxicated, because there's a difference, and everyone should know their limit. And, um, it ends up being a personal decision. But at the end of the day, whether you, my personal rule is when I am having a when it's a business function, and particularly in those instances where I am the only female, I am one of very few females, or if it's a one-on-one, because there are some instances where I have been on business trips and it's me and another male colleague from my company or whatever, and we're having dinner, or it's, a socialization of some kind, and it's one-on-one. My rule is one drink. Why? One, first of all, I don't want to be seen as the lush in the group, and I always am very conscious of the appearance of impropriety, because people tell their own stories. They see what they want to see and tell their own stories. And also for the very real reason that regardless of whether you are a male or a woman, in a business setting, you need to be focused on handling business, and that is a little bit hard to do when you are intoxicated. It just is. And it invites trouble. It invites poor decision making, because we know that one of the impacts of alcohol is it lowers your inhibitions and makes you a little bit braver than you should be. And so, some people will say some things under the influence of alcohol that they normally would not say otherwise sober. And also, it really does have the impact of, when consumed in excess, of removing your ability to take control of the situation or to otherwise be able to take care of yourself. And personally, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm not in control of my settings, because as a woman in a male-dominated environment, or as a woman in a business environment anyway, you have enough issues to contend with sober. Those issues are exacerbated when you are drunk, okay? When you are intoxicated and cannot control yourself, or cannot otherwise, or are not fully cognizant of what's going on around you. And so, as a general rule for business people in a business setting, if you're going to consume alcohol, it should be done in moderation. Everybody needs to know their limit. Again, my personal limit for business engagements is one drink, because I don't want to take it to chance. Depends on what I drink, depends on what I have going on. Sometimes one drink, one drink, I'm going to be in control, right? Two drinks, it depends, So I don't want to take that chance. So my personal limit is one. Now, if it's a social setting, I'm going to have two. And, I have personally come to the decision that at 45 years old, I am way too grown and sexy to be intoxicated in any situation, whether it is social or otherwise. I like to get my little buzz on. I'm chilled out or whatever, but I have control issues, so I'm not going to let myself get into a situation where I can't be able to take care of myself, regardless of whether it is social or not. And that's one of the things that we really have to remember, that alcohol has the ability to not only put you in danger, but to impair your brand. Because what you don't want to be known as, male or female, is the person who gets drunk at the office parties. You don't want to be the center of the story, next year about, ooh, I wonder what such and such is going to do with the Christmas party this year. You remember last year they got drunk and serenaded the boss's wife, or danced in their underwear on the table. I mean, that's just not the look that you want as a professional, whether you are male or female. So, simply put, you shouldn't get your drink on in excess in public, period. And this is whether you are with all of your male colleagues, if you're male, or with all of your female colleagues, if you're female. Regardless of the setting, you should always be very conscious of your brand and be mindful of your safety. So what do you do when you have to work late nights? That is a very real issue, because we have to face it. Business doesn't stop at dark time, right? If you're in an office setting, sometimes you've got to work late into the night to get a project done. If you're out of town, some activities may go on into the night. So what do? You just pack your stuff up and go home because it's nighttime? No, you take care of business. And, there are some things that you may need to do to, ensure, again, that there is low likelihood of there being an appearance of impropriety, and there may be extra precautions that you may take. But the thing is that ultimately you've got to be able to handle business because if you have professionals in the workplace, in the marketplace, who cannot conduct themselves as professionals, then ultimately it's going to impair the ability to take care of business, whatever that is. It's going to impair the project. And the thing is, you shouldn't get your drink on where you make your money, and you shouldn't be making, where you make your money. You do that some other place because you need to be able to focus on what needs to be focused on, and that's taking care of business. So, I have had situations where, I used to have a male executive assistant, and you all. It used to have a male executive assistant, and so the question, I remember being questioned by my male counterparts. Well, what are you going to do when you have to work late? I'm like, well, I'm gonna work late. Why would I not handle business any other time or any other way simply because my assistant happens to be of the opposite sex? First of all, it wasn't that type of party, and second of all, we needed to take care of the business that we needed to take care of, and so we did that. And so, ultimately, you have to again conduct yourself like a professional, and not, as I always say, that just because the lights go down doesn't mean that your standards should go down. You conduct yourself in the light the same way as you conduct yourself in the dark as it relates to taking care of business, whether you are working with business colleagues in the entrepreneurial space or whether you are working with business colleagues in a work environment. So this is going to be a short one because there's just not too many ways that you can say that, libations come with liabilities. And so when you choose to take part in libations in a workplace setting, you've got to exercise good sense. As my granny would say, you got to act like you got some sense. And you've got to make reasonable decisions as it relates to the amount that you take in, as well as being aware of the amount that others are taking in, because you may be completely sober, but if you've got a colleague who is 3 sheets to the wind, then you've got to worry about are they going to put themselves or you in safety, at risk. So somebody's got to be the adult, somebody's got to take care of business, and that should always be you. And it's also very important from a liability perspective to think about it as the company, as the business owner. If you are serving alcohol to your business colleagues and one of them gets 3 sheets to the wind and decides to drive home and has some kind of accident, or God forbid, is mortally wounded because of driving under the influence, there are real life liabilities that you have for having created that situation. So not only is this important to think about from a branding perspective, from a safety perspective, but from a liability perspective in terms of your business or your organization. So serving alcohol, it always comes at a risk, whether it's social or whether it's business. But you really got to be thinking about it with a heightened perspective when you are a business owner or a business leader, because not only are there liabilities for you as an individual, but you could be creating liabilities for the company itself. So mixing business with pleasure, mixing liquor with business comes at a risk. And so you should always proceed with caution and use common sense, and figure out what your personal limits are. Make sure that you adhere to those personal limits, and you don't do anything to put your reputation nor your business in jeopardy. So with that, I'm going to sign out, because again, there just ain't much more I can say about it, and I don't believe in beating a dead horse. So I am going to go and enjoy my libation and get ready, because I've got an early morning. I have an early coaching client, so I've got to get in the bed and get ready so that I can be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for my client. So I do appreciate you for joining me on this late night, and hopefully you got your libation too. So I will see you. I'm not going to say tomorrow. I do plan to be here tomorrow, but I told that lie last week and said I was going to bring part 4 on tomorrow, and it ended up being, 4 or 5 days later, but I did bring you part 4. So what I will say is join me next time for part 5 of the 5-part series, SEX and the CEO, a candid discussion on sex in the marketplace and the workplace. So I will be closing out with part 5 and talking about using femininity as a market advantage and the realities of how that works and perhaps how it should. So with that, I will just say until next time, this has been the Word from SDB. I am Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and it has been my pleasure to bring you part 4 of the part 5 series, SEX and the CEO, a candid discussion on sex in the marketplace and the workplace. And I look forward to joining you in the final part of this 5-part series when I will discuss using femininity as a market advantage. So until next time, I'll see you. Bye-bye. Behave.